Guitar gear. It can be very expensive and it can add up very quickly too. A little while ago I did a video where I priced up some famous players' rigs and the prices got up pretty high. I think the highest was around 40 grand. But some of you weren't happy with that. You wanted more. You wanted to see the world's most expensive rigs. And well, okay. But only if you like the video right now, because it took ages to price this stuff up. It's very difficult. Now, a couple of things before we start. One, I'm not pricing up the miscellaneous things like cables, and I'm also not pricing up guitars. I'm pricing up pedal boards and amplifiers, and custom guitars take it from not an exact science to just a complete guess. So we're not going to do that. I'm also not pricing up the annual salary of the road crew required to lift some of these rigs, and I'm pricing everything in dollars because that's where most of these rigs are and where most of the audience viewing this video are. And just so we're clear, this video is not a substitute to where I'm getting the rig information from. Those sources are linked in the description. This video is not telling you about how these players are using the gear. This is a maths class. So, let's start with none other than Eddie Van Halen, and this rig is taken from the last Van Halen tour.
Starting with the pedal board, it looks very intimidating, but it's actually quite simple when it comes down to what its core functions are. Now there's a few items that I can't price up, some custom through boxes, a custom loop selector switch, and then the amplifier switch, which is factored into the amp price itself. But the bulk of the board equates to about 6 pedals, a Boss OC3, a Boss CE5, the coolest looking wah, the EVH Dunlop wah, the EVH Phase 90, the EVH flanger, and a G-Lab amp loop selector, and those collectively add up to a modest $952.
Now I don't know about you, but I was expecting that to be a lot more, like it is Eddie Van Halen, but we're not finished yet. Most of the money in Eddie's rig is in the amplifiers. Let's take a look.
Now I'd first like to draw your attention to the amplifiers that you can see on the stage. Those cabinets are real and in use, and 10 of those cabinets would work out to around $11,500. But as far as I'm aware, the amplifiers on top are just dummy heads. They're not actually being used or even backups. Eddie had main and backup amps in flight cases behind those cabinets. He had 7 5150-3100S heads working out to around $17,150, and he had one 5150-100S EL34 version, which is $2,600. And the few effects that weren't on the pedal board were in a rack. He had a Furman power conditioner and then 2 Roland SDE 3000s. You can buy one of those on Reverb secondhand for around $350, so 2 roughly $700. And then he had a Lexicon PCM 70, that's roughly $1,250 secondhand.
So that means that altogether, including backups, Eddie Van Halen's rig was roughly $34,502, which all things considered really isn't a huge amount. You know, it is Eddie Van Halen. Now, like all the other guys in this video, the gear is cool. It can be fun to look at and it can give you a nice tone. But what really matters is the ability to play the instrument, and that's why today's video is sponsored by TrueFire. TrueFire is an online guitar lesson platform with over 50,000 lessons. That's quite a lot. Loads of techniques, loads of genres, and it's being taught by some of the best players. Andy Timmons. But I haven't even told you the best bit yet. If you click the link in the description, you can sign up for a 14-day free trial. That's still not the best bit though. Unlike almost every free trial I've ever come across, TrueFire don't ask for payment information for you to sign up. They are so confident in their product that they believe that you will want to sign up after your trial is up. And if that doesn't make you want to give them a shot, I don't know what will. There's nothing to lose and knowledge to gain. So click the link in the description, and thank you to TrueFire for sponsoring the video. Now our next rig shoots up in price considerably. It's Angus Young from ACDC, and this rig is taken from 2016, the Premier Guitar Rig Rundown. Very good video actually, I have linked it in the description as well. I recommend watching it. Let's price it up.
The whole rig is powered by a Kakusu power supply, and a very expensive one at that, $9,600. And that power feeds into the rack. A lot of the pieces in the rack are discontinued as this rig is from 2016, but going off eBay prices, the Furman PL8E would be about $99, and the Shure Axient 400, which is also discontinued, 2 of those would be about $9,000 based off secondhand prices. Though it's interesting to note that if you upgraded to the modern Shure Axient wirelesses, those would cost about $7,000 a piece. There's Axient accessories like an antenna booster for $1,643, and a charging bay for all the packs, $479, $99. And then we're into 2 Mike Hill switchers for those wireless packs, and 2 of those would come together at $1,396. There's 2 Schaefer replicas coming in close to $3,000, and 2 Rocktron Hush pedals, the cheapest bit of gear in the entire rig, coming in at roughly $50 a pedal. That all goes into 2 Radial JD7s coming in at $2,720, meaning that the rack and power supply come in together at $28,035, roughly. The amplification is where things really start to add up in price though. Angus is using Marshall SLP 100s, and he uses a mix of 87 reissues and the originals, but mainly 87s, so these prices are based off if they were solely 87s. There are 9 heads in use, which roughly come to $36,000, and of course there are about 12 backups, which would come to $48,000 on top of that. And on stage there's 15 cabinets in use, 15 Marshall 1960s basket weaves, and those come to $28,500.
So Angus's rig in total came to a massive $140,535. I told you it shot up in price, but that's still only the second lowest in the video. Let's go one more. Our next rig comes from a friend of the channel, Mr. More is More himself, Mr. Yngwie Malmsteen. The pricing in this one is very much ballpark due to the amp heads. I explain that in a second, but let's price it up.
Starting at the pedal board, or just in front of it, Yngwie's got a Line 6 G90 wireless rack. That would cost $600. He's then got a standard Dunlop wah, $100, a Boss NS2, $120, a Boss DD7 delay, $190, a Boss CE2 Waza for $230, a Fender Yngwie Malmsteen signature overdrive pedal, which interestingly enough, when it was new, would have roughly cost around $60, but since its discontinuation, it skyrocketed in price, and the cheapest or average price that I could find on the secondhand market was $250. He's got the Boss Ori 200, about $200 secondhand as it's discontinued, and the Boss ES8 for $750, the MXR Dynacomp for $90, and the Digitech Whammy 5 for $250, making the board total $2,780. Not too expensive, all things considered.
But like Angus before, and several of the rigs in front, it's the amplifiers where things really start to add up.
Yngwie has got 52 Marshall heads on stage. That is quite a lot. After all, more is more. However, he's obviously not using all of them because that would be impossible. He's only got 18 cabinets on stage, so at max he's using 18 heads. Very likely a lot less than that. But Yngwie claims that all these amplifiers are real, so we will price them as such. The difficulty with this particular pricing is that he's using a mixture of SLP 100s and the Marshall signature Yngwie Malmsteen heads, and they all look the same, at least on the front. So for this calculation, I'm assuming that they're all Yngwie Malmsteen signature heads. We know they're not, but we really don't know the exact number of signature heads versus SLP 100s. So 52 signature heads on the second-hand market roughly would cost around $3,005 a head, times 52 is $182,000 of just amp heads on that stage. Then of course he's got the 18 cabinets. A Marshall cabinet, in America anyway, costs a lot more than it does on this side of the world, but $1,900 a cabinet, 18 cabinets is $34,200, meaning just the amplifiers and speakers on stage come to a whopping $216,200.
Now I didn't price up the Ferrari, that is extra, but Malmsteen's rigs comes to roughly around $218,980. Not bad. But there's still 2 more rigs to go. The next one belongs to the man who, when he's not waiting on the world to change, he's playing dumbles and clons. It's John Mayer.
John has had a lot of pedal boards in his career, and I'm pricing up this one, and there's a few pieces that are worth noting, especially for the price that they carry, such as the Ibanez TS10, the budget tube screamer until John got his hands on it. Unfortunately, these now carry the John Mayer tax, which means that anyone who is listing them has now added a 0 to the end of their listing, and some people are really stretching it. Though they don't seem to be selling for the really high prices asked, they tend to be going for around $450. Another large chunk of change goes to the Pete Cornish Tape Echo, which are fairly difficult to find secondhand, but when I can, they are in the thousands. And of course, the Klon. John's actually using a slightly cheaper Klon because it doesn't have the horse painted on it, because that adds for extra tone apparently, but it still sets you back around $4,600 currently on the secondhand market. It all adds up though, and it makes John's pedal board a combined total of $9,470. But this is the bit that everybody was waiting for with John's rig. It's the amplifier, and it's where the prices certainly go up quite a bit. Here he's using 6 Alessandro 2x12 cabinets, and 6 of those, based off the second-hand market, would come to roughly $8,872. On the left and right cabinets, John is using 2 signature John Mayer 2 Rock heads, which have gone up quite a bit in the second-hand market as well. 2 of those, roughly, would come to $90,000 now. And that's of course quite expensive for 2 amplifiers, but nowhere near as much as a Dumble steel string. There's only one on the second-hand market right now, that I could find at least, and it's priced at $220,000. Now of course the guy who's selling it would probably take $200 or $180, but we're just going off listed price, which brings John's amp total to $318,873.
That means that John Mayer's rig is a massive $328,343. John, you could buy a house for that. And it's still not the most expensive in this video. One more, who do you think it is? So I'm outside for this one with my Joe Bonamassa garden gnome and guitar watering can, and I'm sure you can guess where this is going. Of course, it's Joe. And remember, we're not pricing up the plethora of 59 Les Pauls. This is just pedals and amps. Let's see what Joe's costs.
Starting relatively cheaply, we're looking at Joe's pedal board, and most of these pedals are pretty standard and easy enough to find. The Bonamassa Signature Wah, $190, a Lele amplifier switch for $300, a Super Tram, $139, a Signature Joe Bonamassa Fuzz Face, $150, Pog for $245, Ibanez TS808, $180, MXR Micro Flanger for $100, Boss DD2 for $160, a Way Huge Overdrive for $170, a Hughes & Kettner Rotosphere, which are discontinued and seem to go for around $450 on the second-hand market. And Joe has got his power supply on the board, so I can price it up. It's $200 for a Pedal Power 2 Plus, meaning that the board's total is a very modest for Joe, $2,284. It only goes up from here though. Before we can even get to Joe's amplifiers, we have to pass the acrylic amp shields in front of them, adding up to $1,339. To the right you can see that Joe's using a custom cabinet, and I couldn't find out what the pricing for this cabinet was, so I priced it up as a standard 1960s Marshall cabinet from SweetWater, but I'm sure it's a hell of a lot more pricey than that. And speaking of pricey, Joe's got 3 Dumble amplifiers on stage. He's got a Dumble Overdrive Special head, which I could find one selling for $184,900. And then he's got 2 Dumble Overdrive Special combos, and interestingly enough, I priced these from a Dumble Overdrive Special combo that was previously owned by Joe, and it's sold. So 2 of those would cost, roughly based off those prices, $279,998. He's got 2 of his signature Joe Bonamassa hand-wired Fender Twins, and those would be $7,000, and he's got a Mesa Revolver cabinet, and these are very, very hard to find. This pricing is based off a sale from 7 years ago for $1,500, but I'm sure it's at least double, if not triple that now. And then backstage, Joe's got 4 Marshall Jubilees, and this pricing is based off the modern-day equivalent of the Jubilee, because it seems that the older ones and the newer ones have very close pricing at the moment, so these are priced off the new ones, bringing just Joe's amp total to $485,737.
I think this might be the world's most expensive touring rig. I can't imagine anyone else having a higher price. And remember, this is not including all the vintage guitars he's bringing out. This rig probably costs millions in total, but just the pedals and amps, it comes to a huge, massive $488,021. You've got to admit that does add an air of humour to Joe's role playing as poor. Maybe Joe and I just have different definitions, but that's the video. Let me know if you think of any rigs that could be more expensive than Joe's here, but thank you for watching, and if you want to subscribe and like the video, and me and Joe will see you next time. Bye bye.